York City Mayor Eric Adams is under immense pressure to resign following an indictment on federal criminal charges. Adams and several of his top officials have faced growing scrutiny as part of multiple federal corruption probes. He's facing 5 charges, including wire fraud, bribery, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. Prosecutors say the alleged benefits Adams received came with strings attached. The U.S. Attorney Damon Williams saying Turkish officials gave these things to gain influence over him. He alleges lavish gifts accepted by Adams, including yacht tours, meals, and flights. The trips to and through Turkey totaled over $100,000. And Adams addressed a press conference today where crowds yelled, quote, "Resign." He criticized the judicial system and the media, saying that the allegations about him had been out there for months before he or his team officially knew anything. The indictment makes the 64-year-old the first mayor in the city's history to be charged while in office.
I put the people of New York before party and politics. Now, if I am charged, many may say I should resign because I cannot manage the city while fighting the case. I can also understand how everyday New Yorkers will be concerned that I cannot do my job while I face accusation. But I have been facing these lies for months since I began to speak out for all of you and their investigation started. Yet the city has continued to improve. Make no mistake, you elected me to lead this city, and lead it I will. I humbly ask for your prayers and your patience as we see this through. God bless you, and God bless the city of New York.
Well, let's stay in the U.S., where the state of Florida is bracing for the arrival of Hurricane Helene, forecast to be a powerful Category 4 storm when it smashes into the state's panhandle. Officials in that city have issued dire warnings, pledging with residents in coastal areas along the hurricane's path to evacuate ahead of catastrophic winds and a potentially deadly storm surge. The wall of sea water pushed on land by hurricane forces wind that could rise up to 20 feet in some spots. As of this morning, the strengthening storm was moving northeast of about 12 miles per hour. And, of course, according to the National Hurricane Center in that country, residents have been preparing for the storm with businesses closed with boarded up when down.
We have not seen, other than COVID, a recent event where 159 counties in Georgia have been impacted. Hurricane Debbie is going to probably be in the 60 or $70 million range so far, and it affected 30 counties with 8 of those receiving IA. So I'm not saying do the math and 5 times that is what we're expecting. I would just simply say this is a wide-scale event with significant implications.
Well, like the director mentioned, with the increased forward speed, it was already expected to be moving in about 20 miles per hour forward motion. Now that's even increased, so it's just not going to have enough time to weaken a whole lot. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some Category 3 level impacts in extreme southern Georgia, southwest, south central Georgia, but I do expect that we will see widespread Category 1, Category 2 hurricane impacts all throughout the hurricane warning area, which, as the director mentioned, is now forecast all the way up through the Columbus-Macon area.
Well, let's cross over live to Washington, D.C., where our correspondent Mariah Baird joins us live on the program. Maria, this storm is said to be one of the worst the U.S. will have experienced in decades. How much more potential damage are we looking at here?
We are looking, as they say, with millions of dollars worth of damage, and it is affecting all the way up the eastern seaboard. Even here in Washington, we have been dealing with almost a week's worth of rain right here near the border of Washington and Virginia. They are also bracing for the hurricanes. So Florida hurricanes are expected to really have major devastation in those areas, but it's going to impact the entire eastern seaboard.
Maria, Florida is a vacation spot for those in America and around the world. What areas specifically will be affected by the storm?
We know the Tampa area will be impacted. Right now, we don't see the Miami area being as impacted, but obviously the storm is still very much raging. We know this is a time of the year where we'll see major hurricanes, potentially June through November is the time period. September seems to be the period where we see most of the storms. And because we have just seen that this is actually heading toward Georgia, we can see that entire panhandle area could be impacted by these storms. And they're obviously monitoring to see if there's any other storms that potentially could be brewing as a result of this very large storm that, as you heard and as you said earlier, has caused millions of dollars of damage, obviously down power lines, down trees, and homes, unfortunately, flooding, and homes actually being majorly destroyed.
On the ground, Maria, in Florida, the state government is mobilizing effort and making efforts to evacuate or hunker down. What's going on at the federal level?
The federal government will obviously send FEMA to be able to assist with that. Typically, they come once the storm has begun to die down, because right now it is a safety issue. They're trying to obviously evacuate people. They're trying to ensure that individuals are safe. And so FEMA typically comes during the recovery period. Obviously, states of emergency are in place. So individuals need to escape to other parts, more inland, or other states even, to be able to secure safety. Schools are closed. There'll be various shops closures as a result of this, just to ensure that people are focusing first on safety, and then the rebuilding efforts the federal government will begin.
Maria, I'm told that we are absolutely pressed for time, but allow me to squeeze in one final question, because it's the last quarter of the year. The winter months will soon be here. What's the forecast for the months ahead?
Well, with global warming, we have been very surprised at what the months ahead for the winter. Typically, we deal with very extreme temperatures. We are actually a little bit warmer than normal with all this rain for the fall season, because we are quickly heading, as you said, to winter. I think that we'll have to keep this conversation going, because we will be surprised most likely. But we do anticipate having some sort of snow in the eastern and northeast regions.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and see how things unfold right there in Florida and, of course, in Mexico, where Hurricane Helene is expected in the coming hours. But must thank you most kindly, Channels Television's Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Baird. Thanks indeed for analysis, and please stay safe. Well, let's stay in the U.S. for a moment, but to the election campaign trail now, where Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance says he wants to use the upcoming debate against Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to show Americans just how to make their lives better. Vance was making the comments at a campaign rally in Traverse City of Michigan. When Vance and Democrat Tim Walz collide in a vice presidential debate next week, both men will seek to fill the basic sketches about the American public has seen of them so far, while also making the case for their respective presidential nominees, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
The way I see the debate is very simple. It's an opportunity where for 90 minutes, Governor Walz and I are going to debate the issues that matter to the American people. And what I'm going to try to show is very simple, that the candidacy, the team of substance, the team that actually has a record that we're proud of instead of we're running away from, and the team that actually has a plan is the team of Trump-Vance. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Is look, I think one of the fundamental differences between Kamala Harris's campaign and Donald Trump's campaign is we speak to our fellow Americans like they're citizens, because they are. Kamala Harris speaks to her fellow Americans like they're children. And so what I'm just going to try to talk about here is explicitly what we're going to do to make your life better. And here are the ways in which the current administration has made your life worse. And we're going to try to connect it to public policy because that's what I think the American people care about. So that's my plan. So we're studying up as much as we can on the issues that matter to the American people. And I'm looking forward to it because, again, as much as the moderators may very well be biased, we'll see about that. I know they were the first time. But it's an opportunity for me to get to tell the American people how I think we can make their lives better and how Donald Trump's policies can make them more prosperous, can make the world more peaceful, and can secure that southern border. If we do those things, we're going to win, and I believe we will.
In the meantime, the Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris was in Pennsylvania on Wednesday, where she said she would offer tax credits to domestic manufacturers and invest in sectors that will define the next century, as she detailed her economic plan to boost the U.S. middle class. She was addressing supporters at the Economic Club of Pittsburgh. Harris also is promising new investments in industries like biomanufacturing, aerospace, artificial intelligence, and clean energy.
The American people face a choice between two fundamentally very different paths for our economy. I intend to chart a new way forward and grow America's middle class. He has no intention to grow our middle class. He's only interested in making life better for himself and people like himself, the wealthiest of Americans. I have pledged that building a strong middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. And I promise you I will be pragmatic in my approach. Because I believe we shouldn't be constrained by ideology and instead should seek practical solutions to problems. Look, I'm a capitalist. I believe in free and fair markets. I believe in consistent and transparent rules of the road to create a stable business environment. We will take on bad actors who exploit emergencies and drive up grocery prices by enacting the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging. The third pillar of our opportunity economy is leading the world in the industries of the future and making sure America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century.
Well, let's get some perspectives now and commentaries as regards the November 5 elections in the U.S. Dr. Ohiro Oniesele is the founding director of Social Works Program, University of Delaware. He joins us from New York. Thanks indeed, Doctor, for agreeing to speak with us here on Channels TV. Typically, a vice presidential debate is viewed as the undercard, a clash largely overlooked by voters in recent years, but Walz and Vance's bouts have attracted outsiders' attention. So I wonder, do you think voters might be more interested than usual to see both men go head-to-head this time?
I think so, and there are several reasons why. I can tell you that we are currently dealing with multiple situations, and for example, the current election period really reminds us of what I would describe as a coalition of intersectionalities. Intersectionalities of race, gender, and immigration. And so even the vice presidential candidates, especially on the Republican side, represent various aspects of those conversations. And as you know, during the last presidential elections, the former president of the United States, Mr. Trump, made an allegation about Haitian immigrants, though he knew it wasn't true. And that has actually sparked a lot of issues in that area because he continues to repeat that, and his vice presidential candidate continues to repeat that. And so that is really going to come to play in the debate next week. It actually also stimulates, I would say, significant interest as people look forward to that debate. to hear not only how that will play out, but also how the policies of the former president will be articulated, because so far he has not been able to articulate his policies. I think he just wants people to believe what he says, because we know that historically he's been a very good salesman. He's also a very good salesman for the positions that he takes.
Yes, Doctor.
Whether they're positions into life or not.
Yes. So I have to squeeze in as many questions as possible. In terms of debates, preparations, and strategy, what's your analysis of how both men will approach this high and crucial debate?
The approach will actually depend on who they are. Mr. Vance is an attorney, so he's going to come as an attorney, but he's also going to come with a list, the list of things that he has been saying. So he's going to try and really shout over the other guy who is a teacher. But that guy is a teacher who also comes from a very tough part of the country. So they are both going to come very prepared. I am not sure that they're going to really change many hearts, but they're both going to come prepared. I know that Mr. Walz has been preparing, and Mr. Vance, actually, as you can tell from the clip that you just played, he has been preparing as well. They are both very intelligent men. They both come, are cut from similar cloths, although they have led their lives in different ways. And so they'll be speaking to various segments of the country. But I think that even the segments that they speak to will actually come together at one point, because even the part of the country where Mr. Walz comes from is a part of the country where you can speak the language that people understand in the so-called red states, which is where Mr. Vance comes from. So I think that they're both going to come to this debate very prepared. I am personally looking forward to it.
Yes. Doctor, there are 19 electoral votes at stake here for Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Pennsylvania is the biggest of the 7 key election presidential battlegrounds. How are both candidates faring so far as regards to these battleground states?
As we speak right now, Vice President Harris is up by 2 points in Pennsylvania. And it is a very critical state, which is why you have both candidates going there multiple times. And one of the reasons for that is that if the Vice President Harris wins Pennsylvania, the game is over, because she's going to win Michigan, where she's already up. She's most likely going to win Wisconsin. All she needs is Pennsylvania. And she has multiple paths to get to the presidency. Mr. Trump has a very narrow path. So it is really scorched earth for him. That's the way he's going about Pennsylvania. He really needs to win it. He has to win Pennsylvania to keep his hopes alive.
Well, Doctor, I'm afraid we are totally out of time. We have to leave it here for now and perhaps get to speak with you subsequently. But most thank you indeed for your analysis and commentaries. Both men, of course, are from the U.S. Midwest, and they claim to understand Americans like no other person does. We'll see how the debate unfolds on Tuesday next week. And, of course, we'll bring our viewers here in Nigeria and all around the world up to speed as things unfold as regards the race for the White House November 5. But most thank you indeed, Dr. Ohiro Onyesele, live for us there in Delaware, founding director of Social Work Program, University of Delaware. Thanks indeed for analysis and perspectives on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And some other stories now. What do you do after being on death row in Japan for over 45 years? That's the dilemma faced by the man considered to have spent the world's longest time on death row after he was acquitted of murder, ending his family's search for justice following a wrongful conviction for crimes committed nearly 60 years ago. The Shizuoka District Court cleared 88-year-old Iwao Hakamada in a retrial of the murders of 4 people in the central Japanese region back in 1966. He spent 45 years on death row before a court ordered his release and a retrial in 2014 amid doubts about the evidence that formed the basis for his conviction. The former boxer was accused of starving to death his former boss and family before burning down their home. Though he briefly admitted to the killings, he retracted the confession and pleaded innocent during his trial, but was nevertheless sentenced to death in 1968, a penalty upheld by Japan's Supreme Court in 1980. Norimichi Kumamoto, one of the three judges at the court who had sentenced Hakamada to death, petitioned the Supreme Court for a retrial in 2008, but the plea was rejected. Hakamada's lawyers had also argued that DNA tests on blood-stained clothing said to be their client's showed the blood was not his. Since his release, he has now lived with his older sister, Hideko, who battled for decades to clear his name. And Pope Francis greeted people as he visited Luxembourg aboard the Pope Mobile earlier today after delivering a speech calling on world leaders to devote resources to help improve conditions in developing countries. People gathered behind barriers along the convoy's route to have a glimpse of the 87-year-old pontiff. In his speech, Pope Francis also urged for spiritual values and solidarity in the face of ongoing conflicts in the world, such as in Ukraine and in the Middle East region. It is a rare European visit for Francis. We will also head to Belgium later in the day. He has tended to go to places never visited by a pope or where Catholics are a small minority. Nearly half of Luxembourg's 654,000 strong population are foreign nationals, primarily from neighboring countries such as France, Belgium, and Germany. It's interesting to see the Pope just have some fun there with the young boy. Well, the Pope's visit does it for us here on the World Today. Thanks indeed for watching. On behalf of the production team and everyone here, I am Kelly Egiga. Bye now.